Hey, it's Megan. You're listening to the Deeply Rested podcast. Although I'm going to guess you already knew that. I'm really glad you're here today because I want to do something different today. And I feel a little nervous about it. So I'm just going to start there. I'm going to start with the truth. Today I'm recording a solo episode. What? Why am I doing that? Because I have some things I want to tell you. I have some things I want to share with you. I think I always love it when podcasts I listen to publish short episodes. It's so nice to have like a 10 or 15 minute thing to chew on. I really want to try this format, but I have been so resistant to it. Nancy has been trying to get me to do a solo mini episodes for months. I kept pushing back. And why? Why am I pushing back? Because who do I think I am to show up here on this podcast I created to talk at you? What am I even doing? Do you even care? Do you even want to listen to what I have to say? Is this a sign that I am secretly a raging narcissist? Oh, these are honestly the fears that wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But my therapist has assured me that if I'm asking if I'm a narcissist, I'm probably not a narcissist. I don't know. Still worried about it. But we're going to unpack that in a future episode. Today, I'm going to lower the bar. I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit easier, a little less vulnerable. I want to talk today about the myth that we can ever be done with our businesses. The myth that being done is a thing that actually exists. Because for me, done and perfect, they get really tangled up. And it's hard for me to do things like this, to try new things in my business, to roll out a new message or a new offering, because it doesn't feel done. It doesn't feel complete. It doesn't feel perfect. And I know I can feel in my own body how that holds me back as a business owner. And of course, it shows up in conversations with my clients literally every single week. I'm like, we are all really struggling with this myth that there is a point at which we as business owners have arrived and we have things figured out and we're done and now we can just let things roll on autopilot. It's not real, it's not true, but it is something that really gets stuck inside of me. So I want to unravel it with you today. I want to talk through why we do that to ourselves and offer up some suggestions about how we might approach it instead, using myself as an example, because that's really the only thing I have access to is my own story. So I want to live my life out loud. I want to use my life and my business as a testing ground, as a blank canvas upon which I can try new things and then we can all learn and benefit from that process. And we'll see how it goes. So, without further ado, let's dive in. I mentioned this a moment ago, but right now I am in the process of lots of change and transformation inside of my business and my life by extension. Nancy and I talked a ton about this in the last episode, our August episode, about change and how we think about change and how we move through change as business owners. So what's happening specifically for me right now? So the things that are changing for me right now are my business message and the whole premise of this podcast is going to be changing. It's basically going to be a brand new show. The messaging part behind the scenes of the business, it won't feel brand new. It will feel, I hope, like a more focused and clearer version of the business that exists right now. But this podcast is going to change drastically. And that evolution is happening sort of rapidly behind the scenes. And I'm feeling in real time the friction between what wants to come through, the messy drafts of what I'm feeling called to create, and the perfectionist part of me that wants it to all just be finished before I ever share it with you, right? That part that's okay, I don't want to roll this out publicly, or I don't want to make these changes in my life until it's done, until I look at the thing that I'm creating and I'm yep, that's it. That's the thing. Let's roll it out. Bam, we've arrived. But my life is teaching me that the belief I'm holding on to that we ever arrive is another layer of internalized colonialism, patriarchy, capitalism, right? This idea that we are aiming for perfection and we shouldn't show our creations to other people. We shouldn't expose them to the sun until they're perfect. Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering, as I'm saying this out loud, like, are you resonating with this? Does this connect for you? I decided to record this episode when earlier this week I was working with a client one-on-one, and she was so frustrated because she's really tired of iterating inside of her business. She's just really fatigued from being in the iteration process. And she got really mad and she said, I just want this to be done already. I want it to be figured out. I want it to be final so that I can move on with my life. And as often happens for us healers, the clients who show up in our sessions are mirroring exactly what we're experiencing in our own lives. And then we have an opportunity to give ourselves a dose of our own medicine by sharing that medicine with the client that we're working with. And I heard myself give this client the pep talk that I was just like, and I did tell her this afterwards. I was like, just so you know, everything I just said to you, pot kettle, like I also need to hear and receive this. And what I heard myself saying to her was basically, that's a really unfair expectation that you're putting on your business and your creative projects. I like to think about myself being in relationship with my business. It's probably because I'm a couples therapist at my core, and I can't not think of things relationally. But I like to think about my business as this living, breathing organism that I am in relationship with. And I would never put the expectation on a partner that I'm in relationship with to be done. Like, can you just figure yourself out already so that we can move on with the future of this relationship? What? No, that's not what it means to be alive. That's not what it means to be in constant evolution. Everything that's living is constantly evolving, constantly transforming. Gardens are such a beautiful example of this. I can see a garden outside of my window right now, a summer garden that I planted, and it changes so drastically every single day, every single season. And I know in my heart that the same is true about my life, my work, my business, my creative endeavors. They were always changing and transforming, yet we're all carrying around this internalized belief that at some point they'll be done and then we'll have the business that we can just run on repeat ad nauseum for the rest of our lives. That's not actually even what I want. So if I just distill that down, it almost always comes back to this internalized perfectionism that so many of us carry in our bodies, right? This belief, again, that there's some version of my business that's so polished and perfect and clear that I can share it publicly and I can relax and things will be easier and finding clients will be easier. And it's just, I think it's not actually that simple. This led me to zooming out a bit with this client and then with myself afterwards, really to challenge, to unravel this belief that I'm carrying inside of me, this perfectionism, this desire for me, just to be specific again, I'm working on a new message right now. And I keep cycling through iterations of what the message might be. And I can feel this part of me that it's like she won't rest until I find the right one, the perfect one, until it feels like so perfect that I can call it done. And that is so fatiguing. It is really draining me creatively, energetically. I can feel it with the next iteration of the podcast too, where I come up with this idea or this concept and then we're workshopping it behind the scenes and it feels really exciting. And then one part of it feels not quite right or not totally evolved. And then I just want to throw the whole idea, the whole concept away. Nope, that's not it. That's not right. It's this pressure that the next thing that I share with you be my masterwork. And that's just so ridiculous. That's not actually how the creative process works. Authors often write a dozen drafts of a novel before the published version lands in our hands. And I want to think about my business in the same way. I want to think about my business as this living, breathing, organic process that will be in an iterative process for the rest of my life. And my work isn't to get better at being clear. My work is to be braver and more patient and more willing to show you the works in progress, to show you the next draft instead of waiting to release the final results. That's my whole intention in sharing these solo episodes with you. I want to practice showing up in a way that's a little bit uncomfortable, sharing thoughts that are really only half-formed, ideas that I'm unraveling in real time. And then, of course, I want to try to pull some strings together, I'm imagining weaving some threads, weaving some strings together in my ramblings to give you some questions to think about in your own process, in your own business. But also, I want this to be co-creative. That's so important to me. Even though this is a solo episode, I want these to feel like conversations between me and you, dear listener. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so grateful that you are witnessing my creative process in real time. So if you have thoughts, ideas, if you want to be in this conversation with me, definitely email me anytime. I'll put my email in the show notes just so you have it. But here's my question for you today. What if our businesses are living beings? And what if being in relationship with evolution is the point of the whole thing? What if the idea of ever being done is a myth, is a fantasy that we can leave behind, old story, close that book, put it back on the shelf, opening this new book that says I get to create and to be in an iterative process, and that is the work. And I get to share draft after draft after draft with you, trusting that what I need is going to show up when I need it. This is the thing that I am unraveling in my own process right now, and I would love to invite you to unravel this in your world with me in real time. So I'm curious, is there anything in your life right now that is feeling stagnant, that you're resisting changing or transforming? Is there something that's actively evolving that you're having a hard time bringing into the world because it feels too raw, too unpolished, too unfinished to share with anyone else? Is there a place in your life where change is trying to come through, but you can feel parts of you blocking that natural evolution, that natural creative process because you're afraid of what might happen if you let something out of the bag that's not perfect yet? What is it for you? Is it in your business? Is it in your personal life? Is it in your relationships? What is trying to transform or evolve that you're tamping down because you're holding this rigid idea of perfection and finality when, in truth, the only thing that's real is constant transformation and change? What are those things for you? And what might happen in your life if you let yourself share a thing that is half-formed or unfinished or unpolished? Can you give yourself permission to let your work and your life evolve out loud instead of keeping it inside of yourself, waiting for that perfect moment to share it with the rest of the world? I don't know. I'm not here to tell you the right or wrong way to do it. I am just here to be in relationship with you as we unravel these thoughts and these ideas together. Okay, I did it. If you listened all the way through, thank you. I'm looking forward to doing more of these. And I really do want to hear from you. If this lands, if this resonates, tell me, let me know. Yeah, I have nothing. I'm a little bit speechless right now. So why don't I just wrap up there? Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Deeply Rested. If you enjoyed this conversation, I would love to invite you to join the Deeply Rested weekly newsletter. You can sign up at deeplyrested.com/newsletter. I hope to meet you in my inbox very soon.